Thank you for allowing me to be a part of this afternoon with you. I am glad that we've had the chance to learn together, and that's very meaningful to me. I hope that one day perhaps we get to meet face to face. I would like that. I met with a gentleman yesterday for the very first time who is 93 years old and a journalist who had traveled through much of South America over the years, and he said to me, everybody has a story. And I was just wondering if you would accompany me here on a walk through these woods and accompany me on an important story in my life. I'd be honored if you would do so. Actually, I had never camped with my dad. So technically, I guess it was our first camping trip and our last camping trip together. My dad had been living with the effects of Parkinson's disease, and my sisters and I, one Saturday, we had this family meeting with my parents, and our parents told us about how they wished we would help them handle their final years of their life, and they shared with us some of their wishes for how to handle their coming years. And when that meeting was over, I immediately headed off into the state of Montana on a rapid trip, and the very following day, on a Sunday, I received a phone call from my sister telling me that my dad had been admitted to the hospital. I came rushing back into town from Montana, checked in on him, and found things to be more or less under control. So I left my mom and sister at his side for a while. Later that night, I got a phone call from the doctor at the hospital that my dad had been admitted to. And he explained to me that my dad's organs were in failure. He said, "I understand that you work with hospice. Would you be willing to come down to the hospital and explain the gravity of your dad's situation to your mom and to your sister? I'm not sure they're fully understanding what we're trying to explain." So within minutes, I was at the hospital, sitting in a room with my mom and sister and another sister on the phone, explaining that Dad's organs were in failure from some type of fissure in his colon, intestinal tract, and that he would likely die within 2 days. But the doctors were willing to wait until the following morning to recheck his blood counts, if only to confirm his current trajectory. The only possible life-extending solution, the doctor explained, would be a surgery that would entail the installation of a permanent colostomy bag that would be attached to his leg. And then he would be readmitted. He would be admitted to a rehab facility that he may or may not ever be live discharged from. And we sat in tears, all acknowledging what we knew to be true, that Dad would never forgive us for making a decision for him that would include him bearing the responsibility of a colostomy bag, because he was already overly discouraged with the effects of his Parkinson's disease, much less a colostomy bag. The next morning, his numbers were still plummeting, simply confirming the doctor's suspicions. And I could see my dad withdrawing more and more, but from the look on his face, I could also see that he was in pain, and his pain was being undermanaged. So I advocated for him to have more pain medication, which the hospital complied with, and my dad appreciated. But after final confirmations of the doctors of the options available to us, we all looked at each other and confirmed our previous evening's understanding. I ensured once again that Mom knew and understood the implications of the decision before us. And I went into the hospital room to visit with my dad, who was still grimacing in pain while he was waiting for the pain meds to kick in. And I explained to him what the doctors were saying and what we believed his preferred choice to be. And he nodded his understanding, and then verbally affirmed to me that we had accurately understood his wishes. Allow his body to follow its natural course without surgical intervention. And he was in too much pain to speak too much, but his last words to me were, "Thank you, son." I told him that my mom, sister, and my youngest son would each be coming in separately to talk with him. And he spoke with them each briefly, and then he never spoke again. And for the next 6 days and nights, we camped. I on a sleeping bag on the hospital floor next to his bed, where he would soon die. Mom slept on the undersized couch on the other side of the room. And I was so proud of my kids, who would come and sit with him, and they would talk to him as though he could hear every word. All of his children, grandchildren sat around singing his favorite songs and telling stories about the greatest storyteller ever, my dad. It was the following Sunday morning, it was a week later, approximately 4:30 a.m., my mom and I watched his last breath escape from his frail body. That breath felt somehow intentional, ready. And it was Easter Sunday. Thank you, son. I don't think I will ever forget the sound of his voice with those words. Thank you, son. For what? Honoring his wishes, promising to take care of my mom, for being straight with him about what was going on in this moment. I'm wondering today if his thank you, son, was even deeper than many of those obvious things. I wonder if it could have been, thank you, son, for taking the path you did, for learning to stand up for yourself against all odds, for even changing career from pastoring to hospice chaplaincy, because all of that meant that I had been trained and led and prepared for this very moment to advocate for him in the week that was still to come. And I had learned doctor speak over the years and had begun to understand issues related to end-of-life options and pain management. And I had learned how to have clear and difficult conversations with families, and this time with his family, our family. And I needed all of that training for the last week of his life. Without it, the last week would have been much more difficult and much more painful for him and for all of us. And I was able to guide my entire family on the final trail of my dad's life. My 5 years of solitude in Bolivia 5 years removed from my dad's death provided space for me to think about this time and to write about it. And I think that this may have been the very first time since my career change that I felt truly, truly thankful to myself for all the difficult choices I had made, all of which seemed to have been preparing me perfectly for my dad's benefit and our last camping trip. Thank you for giving audience to my story today. You are the very first people I have ever shared it with. You, by your presence here today, and the work you are doing to lessen the suffering of others, are a part of a beautiful story that's being written in the country of Bolivia. And my heart could not be more thrilled for the work that is going on. This is the path to Ancestor Falls. May you experience warmth from the voices of your ancestors, encouraging you to be strong, to be courageous, to be full of joy, and not scared to get into this good work. Just in case, if your patients cannot say thank you loud enough for you to hear them, let me tell you, I think I can hear them here in Montana. Here at Ancestor Falls, I can hear the voices of the people you have cared for, the people you are caring for, saying thank you. I can hear your patients' voices whispering through the trees here in Montana, who have heard rumors of what is happening in Bolivia. Patients' voices saying, thank you for seeing me. Thank you for the loving care of your hands and for not turning away from my situation. Thank you for caring about my pain. In the voices of your patients, I can also hear singing in these waters, saying thank you for listening to me, helping me to hear the meaning of my life through the stories I told you about myself. Thank you for not trying to fix me. And the voices of your patients are reverberating in these rocks, saying thank you for being still with me when all I could do was be still. Thank you for just being present with me, for allowing the healing of your love and compassion to flow freely into and through my spirit. Peace to you.